Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. I've been thinking lately about the whole process of identification cards. Let me be honest with you. I have a birth certificate and I have a social insurance number, basically the same as an SSN for the United States. My problem is I've lost both. Given that we live in 2024, it's fairly easy to look at what you need. Well, to get a new social insurance number, you need your birth certificate. Get a new birth certificate, you need your social insurance number. And that's when I started realizing ID cards are pretty obsolete. Like in the 1980s and 1990s, absolutely. Computers were not everywhere. The idea of walking around with a device in your pocket was unheard of. So we already have a replacement for the technology, an app that you can hook up to, and it will display everything that a police officer needs to know in a stop. But the same token, there's easy ways to defeat that. And I'm not going to talk about, what do you call it? Theft, identity theft, where somebody steals, maybe they just steal your wallet for the money and they're going to throw it away somewhere else. But that data is so insecure, it's almost a crime we have to keep it on our bodies and persons. I respect it speeds up a police officer's life a great deal. But it's just so darn inefficient. You go, you get your picture taken, it gets slapped on a card, and you're wandering around with it, and then you decide to go get your hair cut. Now that poor officer who's pulled you over maybe had a tail light that was burnt out, he has no intention of issuing a citation. He just wants to give you a warning, but he has to go through the driver's license and make sure, is this person wanted for anything? Have I just pulled over the next Ted Bundy? Which is perfectly legit. I understand. I have no problem with that. And the problem is, if I was a killer of some sort, and if an officer pulled me over, first thing I would do would be to pull the battery or pull the chip out of the phone and say, "Oh, officer, I'm sorry, but my phone is acting up. It's not charging," and stuff like that. Now, the average policeman is not a savage brute. They're going to understand some technology because they have to use it every day. But they're not going to know how every phone works, and they can't tell whether it's out of battery, the chip is out, what the error code coming back means. You could probably get away with it just as well as you can saying, "Oh, I left my identification at home." This brings up a weird legal issue. Before we even get this technology, I already have the problem in my head. I was known for that. I was called the doomsayer because my former employers respected me for this, but I could take a look at a situation and say, this is good, there's a problem here, this is good. And overall, I think this is a good idea. But where you have the police officer now who's trying to figure out what somebody looks like based on a picture which may or may not be recent, on the app, assuming that the person didn't do something sneaky, there's so many phones. A person who has that app may or may not have it on the first page. And I got a lot of crap on my phone. A lot. And that officer would have to scroll through to find, the Ontario app. Let's call it that. Because I grew up in Ontario, so that's what I'm going to call it. So the Ontario app, he would go through, click on it, see your picture as recent as they have, and look through all your other vitals, match up with the computer. Maybe even we can have it use Bluetooth so he can just tap it against his computer and it would bring up everything right away. This works for 99.9% of problems. Now, as somebody who's speaking from experience, police paperwork does get messed up. And it's happened to my mother, it's happened to me, it's probably happened to many others, where there's a bad guy across town who happens to share my name. It's happened to my mother as well. There's a bad person around that shares her name. And so they have to run extra checks to make sure this is the good Mrs. Silverlight and this is the good Silverlight. This is something that's going to have to be addressed because even in the age of computers, and I respect them for it, again, I'm not complaining about a policeman doing his job. I'm saying we should probably get rid of the paperwork now. Rip the band-aid off, develop an app that's suitable for all phones. Now, what about if the policeman doesn't know how to use your... I'm terrible with phones. I'm sorry. I have such little interest in them other than as functional devices that I can't tell you the latest iPhone. And the officer's used to iPhones and all of a sudden comes across a Samsung. Or those phones, what was it? Microsoft was running them for a while. You'll get a Motorola out there from now and again. And if you're really lucky, BlackBerry still does sell models. Not as popular as they once were, but they're still around. So you wind up with this officer with a BlackBerry, and I can tell you, I had a fleet of 70 drivers I had to train on BlackBerries in the 2012 period. And BlackBerries were still a little bit obsolete back then, probably why my company bought them in bulk. And the driver's like, I don't understand this thing. Never doing that voice again. I don't understand this thing. And I understood that. And my job was to coach them through it. They worked wonderfully at the terminal. Of course, the second the drivers went outside the terminal, they went to hell. But we were the test case for this company setting them up. Never do that. So if it's that hard for a company to be able to set up something so simple to be able to track and scan, it's going to be difficult for the government to decide to go paperless. And you're going to get somebody out there, Johnny Hickson, who's going to come in and say, I don't trust this new technology. I want a piece of paper that says that I am Johnny Hicksbury. You're not going to be able to get rid of cards right away. Even today, we have elderly people who don't trust things on computers. Because, they saw a lot of crap on 60 Minutes and, the National, whatever it is that they get their news from. And it has concerned them. Justifiably so, in my opinion. The idea was to terrify them to make sure that they wouldn't make common mistakes with their devices, but instead it's completely terrified them away from it. My parents were once in that category. They've realized fighting the tide is never going to work, and they decided to swim with it instead. But not everybody has access to somebody who can fix everything up in a heartbeat and show them this is what you do. Click here, click here, click here, and then you're into your email, your Facebook, your whatever the heck it is. So that will be a major social transition. It's also a major social transition to everything being online. The Internet of Things. Your identification will now be public property. But here's the kicker. It already was. You see, public doesn't necessarily mean everybody can get a hold of it. Public just means it's in the government's hands. I can walk into the library anytime that I feel like, provided I don't have some sort of felony or restraining order or anything to do with that. That's public. But military bases are also technically public. The average person can't walk into them anytime they feel like it, but they're both considered public buildings. So public record, public information, all that doesn't necessarily mean you get to use it. And that's going to be another mentality that needs to change. There are some things you don't want in a public record. Excuse me. For example, your phone number. The government has everybody's phone number, or at least one of everybody's phone numbers. And that's just the way things are. That's the way it always will be. And we've got to get used to that. They don't share them. There's actually, I personally tried to do my taxes extremely early this year, and I was stunned to find out how many checks and balances they've added in just to the income tax system. I'm confused because if somebody else wants to pay my income tax for me, let them. I know it's an old joke. But the fact is, they want to do all that online. That's your income tax. So why not a driver's license? Something that is optional. You do not have to have a driver's license. That's mandated by yourself. You go out, you take the test, and then you're awarded the privilege of being able to conduct a motor vehicle on the roads. All the information that you just did, including your test scores, that's public information. Now, I would still have to file a Freedom of Information request to get a hold of it, which is a whole process, let me tell you. But it's on there anyway. When can we expect an app, what do you call those? You know what I mean? The things that you scan, a barcode, that's like a barcode, something where myself, the government, and everybody else can take a hold of it, scan it, and be done with it, rather than taking your identification. Okay, W. Wilson, Tyrone, Tyrone. Okay, 16. Mackenzie. See, it's already annoying. It's already annoying. And imagine the people that have to do this every day way. Whereas it'll take a few years to automate this system to where you just put your phone on, they scan it, and then how can I help you, Mr. Baker? And that's what we need to start doing. All governments need to start doing that. Well, all Western educated, industrialized, rich, democratic nations need to start doing it. Because it's not like this is going to be a 2-year process. This is a 10 to 20-year process. We're going to get a whole bunch of people and a whole different batch of people getting to retirement age in the next 10 to 15 years. Let's get a start on this. No point to delay. Action this day, as Winston Churchill used to say. And when they start doing it, I can't wait to hear the conspiracy theories. I can't, because I know they're going to come out there. Oh, they have your information. Oh, they can do this. Oh, they can do that. Yeah, and probably somebody's going to develop a code where it's going to be able to read it, and everyone's going to have to figure out a way to shield their crap. Yeah, that's why we need to start developing this now. Make it an option. Absolutely an option. Then you can mandate it eventually, just because you want to get away from printing cards. Because I still got cards that I don't even know when they're from. Yes, I could destroy them, but I think it's amusing to see what I looked like at different periods in my life. Not the point. So, governments, if you're out there listening, let's start having a reasonable kind of identification that doesn't involve me pawing in my wallet and trying to find the cards and, hang on, officer, I know I had my insurance certificate in there, which I used to religiously do. But the insurance companies have already moved beyond those slips. The insurance company is not more advanced than the government. So let's start working on this to get the technology ready today for a better tomorrow. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Silverlight Show. If you did, please like, share, because sharing is caring. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Don't forget to click the bell icon down just above the comments. That way you can be notified every single show that we put out. And we hope you have a fantastic day.